welcome everybody. Yeah, so as you know, we are on the 2022 Leading Higher Education Conference. Thank you very much for attending today's session, which is called Integrated Practice Organization at Michigan State University. And this would be run by Tariq, Abdelhamid, and Sally Gatlin. So my name is Natalia Lacey, and I'm going to be moderating this session. Before we start, I would like to make an acknowledgement. So I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Guruan and Buruan language groups from the Eastern Kulin Nations, and I would like to pay my respect to past, present, and emerging. So very quickly, before we start, a few housekeeping tips in here. So I'm going to ask you to please stay on mute during the presentation. You are more than welcome to turn your camera on so we can see each other. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and I would be moderating those questions as we go. And then also at the end, it would be the chance to ask questions directly. So having said that, Sally and Tariq, I leave it to you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, and welcome to all of you. And it's an honor to be before you. And greetings to everybody, and to those who will be hearing us later also, that are not live with us right now. The title of our talk is Integrated Practice Organization. Probably that's not a common really concept, and it's a made-up concept that we worked with at Michigan State University. So bear with us as we really tell you our story behind that. So the conditions of satisfaction for the presentation today, we want you to walk away with awareness of the integrated practice organization framework that we use at the Student Life Engagement Division at Michigan State University. Describe what is an IPO study and associated assumptions with it, and explore the IPO enterprise roadmap and where are we with that, and discuss the lessons learned and next steps that we have before us. And in many ways, this is our lean story. And if you had the opportunity to attend the presentation that Sally, my colleague, gave a few hours ago, probably 2.5 hours ago, that was also a part of the more in-depth implementation of an IPO study. So this is a little bit more related to the entire framework. So the discussion framework itself, I'm just going to briefly share about MSU and SLE. SLE is the Student Life and Engagement Division, just to give you a sense of what the size is and the scope. Talk a little bit about the IPO, what is the definition, the purpose, and the framework itself. What does it look like? What do these studies have as propositions, axioms, and outcomes? And the roadmap itself, where are we with it, and some of the lessons learned. So Michigan State University is, of course, we are part of, we are in North America and part of the United States. The state of Michigan is in the Midwest. And the Michigan State University is in Lansing. The University of Michigan is in Ann Arbor. If you attended the 2019 Lean HE, it was in Ann Arbor. But we are in Michigan. We are in Michigan State University is in East Lansing. Our campus is on 5,200 acres with 20,000 acres spread around the state. And our raison d'etre, the reason for our being, our students, are about 50,000 students that matriculate at Michigan State University. They're taught and served by 10,000 roughly faculty and staff. So what is the division of student life and engagement? Our mission is really states the following. Together, we provide a safe and inclusive environment while holistically enriching and advancing the life of every Spartan. So all 50,000 students in some shape or form we work with. And it's whether it's a student affairs, student support, or they live with us, they dine with us. So it basically, we touch the student life in class or out of class in all aspects. In class, of course, is the academic side. And of course, we're also responsible for guests who come to campus, faculty and staff who also dine. And if we have recreational facilities that we're responsible for, a conference center. And that basically gives you a sense of our division. We're about $300 million a year in terms of our revenue and budget that we work with. So the definition of IPO purpose and framework, again, because it's not initial public offering, please. So don't confuse it with initial public offering. It's integrated practice organization. So what is IPO? There's a formal definition, and I would not go through that because Sally has covered it in the presentation she did with the implementation on the concessions area. Really, a basic definition is it's an organization striving towards enterprise excellence by its members using lean thinking and continually asking these three questions. And we like these three questions to be asked at all levels, but specifically the leaders, senior leaders, managers, people who work directly, student-facing. It's applicable everywhere. Are we doing the right things? Can we do the right things? And are we doing the right things right the first time? And there is a somewhat of a hierarchy there, and we'll talk about how that actually works. Because there is enterprise excellence mentioned in the definition of IPO and lean thinking, I'll just very, very briefly talk about enterprise excellence as we have embraced it. The enterprise excellence we talk about is really being excellent in these 5 areas that you see, and they're really something that the Drucker Institute has been using to assess organizations, and it's innovation, employee engagement, social responsibility, student guest experience, financial stewardship. We adapted it a little bit to be something that we can use in the higher education. And we really look at enterprise excellence through lean and assessment approaches that leads to effective and efficient student customer problem solving. So in excellence, if you will, is also sometimes a hard concept to define. I like Tom Peters' really approach to it in his book, In Search of Excellence. He basically, in our context, he would say, what would a student or a customer who cares do in the situation that you're considering? So that would define excellence in that case. So for us, that's critical. Lean thinking, I really, again, want to briefly just mention what do we embrace as a definition of lean thinking. You can talk about lean alone and thinking alone, and then lean thinking and define those. Womack, Jones, and Ross, the machine that changed the world, are the ones who introduced or coined the term lean, and in the book. And John Krafcik is the one who actually is given the credit. But there's that definition. Toyota production system, Ford and other companies, in other industries have embraced their own definition. Lean Enterprise Institute, your mentors may have shared their own really understanding and wisdom about lean thinking. The literature has a lot of perspectives on lean thinking. For Lean HE, Dr. Belzer's book really has a nice definition that I think the Lean HE community has accepted. Maybe some acceptance doesn't mean agreement, but at least there's acceptance and embracing of that definition. We're coming into our own. We're coming really into our own definition over time, and it's more that lean thinking is altering the way we identify, understand, and solve problems in the context that we find those problems, and how we learn from mistakes and improve work processes over time. So it's really we feel that we are really finding our way to a unique definition, but that it fits with our needs. So why did we need IPO? This was really something that was important for us because of a concept we call division first, unit second. And it's trying to implore all of our colleagues in the division, we're about 1,000 colleagues total, to embrace this system thinking. Division first, unit second. Think about the division, then think about your unit, because a lot of times we have behaviors where you're thinking about your unit and not the division. So it's really about system thinking. So what is this picture? This picture is showing a problem that happened in the South. It's called the kudzu problem. Kudzu is a plant that was imported, and it was supposed to be a very beautiful, nice plant for ornamental purposes. And what happened is it took over the native species in the area, and it really grew like this, as you see, over houses. If you parked your car and came back in 2 months, your car would be hidden in under this, growth of just of this plant. So it was called the kudzu problem, and it's really representing a systems thinking problem. The other reason why we needed IPO was to fulfill our mission and vision, to continually analyze and improve customer satisfaction, student satisfaction, service and product quality, responsiveness and performance. We talk about student and we talk about customer, and because we serve the student in their aspiration for learning, and we serve the student as a customer as well when they're in a context of a customer. We also have a fiscal responsibility, strategic goal. We don't want to waste money, but also we don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste any of the unproductive use of resources. We don't want to have that. And last but not least is we felt that the integrated practice organization is one way for us to get to a learning and high performance organization. And as opposed to an organization that is really more focused on, it's a knowing culture, not a learning culture. So those are really the whys behind the integrated practice organization. This is the framework. So the framework essentially, we start with the MSU mission, vision, and goals and strategic goals. That really helps us align our own division, vision, mission, value, and strategic goals. And of course, because we have to align with university. And once we have that, then we have a level that we call value discipline or value promise. What are we promising to our students? And that's the level where we question and we ask, are we doing the right things? Sally referred to it as level 1 IPO, or it's also known as question 1 of the IPO. The next level below it is the organization operating model and system. And that's really the capability. And can we do the right thing that we are promising the student? So can we really have 17,000 students living with us on campus? Can we offer all these programs related to affinity groups then and all the programming that goes with student events and all the extracurriculars that we promise? Can we do it? The last level, we call it organizational performance. And that's, are we doing the right things right the first time? And that's where you get the flavor of lean there, because we really introduced the need for no rework and so on and so forth. But essentially, the IPO domain is the 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. And the focus is on these 3 levels. We call them level 1 IPO, level 2 IPO, level 3 IPO questions. For short, sometimes our colleagues just say the questions, and they sometimes say these are excellence questions. For this talk, I'm only going to mention, can we do the right things? How do we assess that? So these are 3 levels. Assessing are we doing the right things? We're not gonna talk about, we're gonna talk about can we do the right things? How do we assess that? It's really an assessment of capability, your IT structure, your organizational culture, the business processes, the management processes. So we, for the division, we have a strong IT department, and Sally also referred to that group in her concessions IPO study story. So we didn't do really a study around their capability. We took their assessment. But we did around organizational culture, business processes, and management processes through an environmental scan of 85 interviews of a slice through the organization. And we did it basically using what's called the World Management Survey. It's a survey that has lean infused in its sections. And this is something that the London School of Business, Stanford, and MIT have really been collaborating on for years. And they have different sectors that really they produced this world management survey for. So you can choose the sector: retail, education, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. And when we did our assessment for the United States, which we were benchmarking ourselves to, roughly the average is out of 5. 5 is the highest score. The average for the US is about 3.35. In 2014, we were below 3, about 2.94. In 2018, we didn't go that far higher. We are roughly at 3.05. So that's basically part of just assessing the capability of the organization. So in terms of, can you do the right things? And again, because of time, really opening up these boxes of organization culture and business processes, management processes is not possible, but there again, lean is infused in them. Dr. Balzer yesterday was talking about scalability, and that is the entire enterprise doing lean. For us, we are a division within MSU, or the whole university. We're doing lean enterprise-wide, or that's our journey. Michigan State University is not, but there are some pockets in the university that are doing it. So this takes us to the third level, which is level 3. We call it the IPO studies level, or are we doing the right things right the first time? And at this level, basically, we're looking at process excellence. If there's a goods production, if there's a service or any interaction involving an exchange of consideration, because we venture in all of these. Production is very different than service. They both have unique things, and Simon yesterday in his keynote alluded to some of that differences. He talked about information, and spoke about that. It's not inventory, and so on and so forth. So, but in general, we're really looking at the process and the interaction between the process and people, process and leadership, process and technology. And how do we study it? We use the Toyota Kata framework. And we have modified it a little bit, but not too much, not to stray too much from the original Mike Ruther framework. But we start with a future challenge. We go to the current condition. We assess the current condition. We have our process for assessing that. Sally has spoken about the profound system of knowledge. Dr. Deming's profound system of knowledge. That's not the only thing we use for current condition, but it's one of them. And then we define the target condition, and where do we want to be? How do we want to? What attributes do we want to achieve? And then we do the gap closure, which is through the scientific process, which is plan, do, check, act. So that's really the IPO study. And essentially, those are we've covered basically the definition, the purpose of it, and the framework very, very quickly. So I wanted to give you some propositions and axioms and outcomes of the IPO studies. Very, very briefly. Some of the propositions we have is that any type of work can be looked at based on an underlying repeating process. So this process repeats, putting frosting on the cupcake. But any work you do, so if it's knowledge work, production work, service, anything can, at some level, you can see it as there's an underlying repeating process. And it's observable, that's this picture, it's observable at some level of abstraction, and it can be visualized. So we can visualize it, and the visualization allows us to understand the student and customer value. And Natalia yesterday was her human-centered design and human-centered experience really focused a lot on really the student value, or the value from the perspective of the customer. So, and that's what we always seek. Lastly, any improvement has to be done in accordance with the scientific process. Plan, do, check, act, or plan, do, study, act, however you like it, but it's essentially what we've learned in school. Observe, hypothesize, test, analyze, and repeat. And that's basically the PDCA. So that's proposition. Axioms, Sally also went through some axioms in her presentation, but the axioms here we talk about are people that are closest to the work source, people that are closest to the work are the source of the ideas, not the people a level or 2 or 3 away from the work. And the lean mechanics, which is really the tools and what should we do? Should we use value stream mapping? Should we use process mapping? Should we do 5S? Should we use the 5 Whys or fishbone? All these lean mechanics are subservient to getting our colleagues to truly engage in creating value for the student and the customer, and having a system in place to capture and solicit their input. And the third axiom is that performance of the whole is not the sum of the parts taken separately, but the product of their interaction. And these gears represent that. The interaction between these gears is what creates the motion, or what this machine is trying to do. So it's to improve the performance of the system, we have to improve the interaction of the parts and not their behavior taken separately. So if I improve the performance of one or an individual gear, it's not going to help the whole system.
Sorry, Tariq, just want to mention we have 30 minutes to go.
Thank you very much. Yes. And we're just as we mentioned the axioms, just some brief outcomes that we also look for from an IPO study. If we're designing a process or we're looking at a process, Sally showed really and explained the concessions process. but all work has to be specified as to content, sequence, timing, and outcome. Every provider recipient, so process A is a provider to process B, every connection has to be direct, and it has to have a way, an unambiguous way for providing a yes or no in sending requests and receiving requests. And last but not least, the value stream or the pathway for every product or every service or every interaction with a student or a customer needs to be simple, direct, and it has to flow. So really that brings us into the enterprise roadmap. Once we had the definitions, the purpose, the framework, some of these axioms, propositions, outcomes, we needed the framework. So what does our framework look like? Really, our framework was non-linear in a way, and you'll see why now. We started with in 2013 to 2015 with leadership and team engagement, and we wanted to move from that to developing capacity, and then go to IPO lean deployment, basically, because IPO has a lot, the integrated practice organization has a lot of lean components in it. Then we wanted to reach the point where we're an improvement engine. In all of these phases, we have sustainability via assessment to really have accountability at a high level. So 2, 3, 4, and 5 were happening from 2015 until now. And essentially the leadership and team engagement, this was really getting to awareness, understanding, hands-on with different leadership members, members of the leadership team, and our team also. So Sally began her IPO study in this group in the 2014-2015 timeframe, and you heard how she explained that it's one of her passions. We couldn't get her to leave that group and come work in the Lean Enterprise and Assessment group because of her passion about working with that IPO study, because those studies continue and go over time. So, and essentially in the developing capacity, we do that through coached IPO studies, professional development, also boot camps. A lot of our colleagues talk about, the way they develop champions. Ruth in Michigan Tech has a lot of programs that she shares with us. The IPO lean deployment, here is where we wanted the IPO studies to be launched as expectation. So we don't want to be the ones who use the senior vice president as a hammer or as a stick. So we want it to be something that happens as an expectation. And we also wanted the level 1 and level 2 questions to be addressed by leadership on a just normal basis. And lastly, improvement engine is really, it becomes a norm. IPO, integrated practice organization, process improvement, process excellence, continuous improvement, all of what we all talk about in this community, we want it to become a norm. So where are we? That's basically the shaded areas represent the progress we have made on this roadmap. Leadership and team engagement is entirely done. And there are activities here that we can talk about, but again, for the interest of time, it's basically concluded. Developing capacity, we have IPO studies that we have coached and completed, and they have shown results. We have also some that IPO studies, basically process improvement studies that have deployed on their own. We did not compel anyone. And we're seeing some level 1 and level 2 questions being raised, but it's not systematic. So we're still the improvement engine. We're not there. So that's a very, we're hoping kind of to get into some of that, but that's still far away. And again, I mentioned here for an example of the IPO study implementation. If you go to Sally's presentation, it's day 3. It's was again, I know it was 8:20 our time, but I don't know Melbourne time. So the other roadmap status, we had to put all of our studies on hold because of COVID. And we discussed that yesterday in the Hoshin Cannery presentation. Our first lean enterprise manager was hired as a permanent position in 2021, and that's Sally. Ooh. And the IPO studies, that's a big milestone for us, because we did not have that position as a permanent position before. The IPO study framework implementation is implementation ready. In other words, we feel very confident about it in terms of really developing champions for it and also rolling it out in terms of implementation. These are some of the numbers of the IPO studies or study cycles that have finished, and the savings we've estimated, or cost avoidance that has happened with them. So I'm rushing a little bit because I know that Natalia told me I have time is running short.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left.
Okay, so this is just to show you where we believe we are in the IPO activation. So in other words, the degree of support we have in the organization over time. This is 2013. We began in this hear it phase, contact, awareness, understanding. Then there's the believe it phase, acceptance, people ready to defend your process improvement, continuous improvement. We're not there. We're getting there. Ready to promote, personalize, and internalize. We're not in the live it zone. Lessons learned. I think I'll ask Sally to interject some of her lessons learned. This one in particular, when we ask teams to talk about the future challenge, they will say, we don't have time or money for future challenges. We have a pressing problem to fix right now. So what's your second question? So we usually, we have a gentle reaction to that, and then we proceed to the second question. But really, it's this cartoon you see with somebody, you're busy wiping the floors, and you're forgetting that the faucet is, you're not fixing the faucet that's leaking or that's running. So we have some of that we still want to work with our colleagues on. I'll skip this one. I'll just mention this one. we always have a struggle between learning and doing. We talk about lean is learned by doing. Well, you have to have something that you've learned in order to do. So do we do boot camps? Do we do any crash courses in lean thinking before we get into a process improvement, or do we do the learning during the process improvement? And we've gone both ways on this, and this is something I adapted from Seth Godin. If you want to learn lean thinking, do lean thinking. If you want to do lean thinking, it helps to learn lean thinking. So there's just, it's like yin and yang. So they're really very integrated. Sally, if you share maybe a lesson learned from our journey with the IPO.
The biggest thing is to practice patience. It's very difficult sometimes. The people on the front lines are the ones doing the work, and they know what needs to be done, but they have a hard time voicing that opinion to leadership or getting their voice heard. So always be listening, and make sure to listen to those that work on the front lines.
That's a very vital thing for us, Sally, and thank you for that. And for our next steps, we really, what I can say is we want to move to all solid green on these really ovals. That's in a nutshell to really share with you what our next steps are and what we're working on is
Sorry,
really
Tariq.
all those ovals.
Sorry, there
Yes.
is a question here on the chat from Sally. I'm just mindful of time that we are start being over time, so we would need to wrap up very soon. And Sally is asking, what do you foresee as the main challenge to progressing this piece of work?
Yeah, well, our main challenge is really the support of some of the leadership team members, the executive leadership team members. And we also, once we launch a process improvement, we don't get the team to commit to the process improvement more than an hour a week or so. So it becomes an issue of when can they give us time. So that's a lot of issue for us, a big issue, sorry, for us. Sally?
Time is definitely one of the biggest issues and one of our biggest challenges. The leadership needs to be committed to providing the time for us to get the process work done.
Thank you both. I don't know if there is more questions, but seeing we are over time and there are some other sessions scheduled, I'm going to leave to the audience if you want to leave and jump into another session. And I also would like to thank you so much, Tariq and Sally, for your time with us today and for sharing your experience. It's been great sharing your presentation. So thank you, everybody.